in Bakersfield, California. The streets are lined with American history.
So often we keep quiet.
Part of that history includes the life and legacy of civil rights leader Dolores Huerta.
But when I look back and I'm able to see all of the things that we were able to accomplish.
For many years, Dolores worked side by side with another civil rights leader, Cesar Chavez.
I was criticized very, very openly and sharply because of my work, my activism work.
Dolores Huerta and other union members fought not only to get contracts for the farm workers here in California, but in other places like New Mexico and Arizona as well.
And so when I met Cesar, I was already an organizer, so I didn't learn organizing from him. So I think I came to him kind of at an equal level.
Before she was in the national spotlight, she spent her younger years in the land of enchantment.
I was very lucky to be born in the state of New Mexico, in a coal mining town called Dawson.
Born in 1930, some of Dolores' early memories as a child were spent in Las Vegas, New Mexico.
You know, going to school where our teachers were bilingual and remembering the fiestas that they had.
The passion for change runs through her blood. Her dad was a state legislator.
But then he was expelled because he actually punched out one of the other assemblymen who was very pro-grower and anti-union.
After her parents' divorce, she and her brothers left to California with their mother, but she never lost her connection with New Mexico.
What I believe really strongly is that there is something very healing about New Mexico. The ambience, the people, the friendliness of the people, and the ethics also.
And the history that lines the streets of Bakersfield will soon be on the street signs in Albuquerque.
Well, I was very thrilled, especially coming from New Mexico, you know, to have a street named after myself. That it's a really, really great honor. And
earlier this month, the city of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County both passed bills to rename a part of Bridge Boulevard to Avenida Dolores Huerta. It'll run along Avenida Cesar Chavez, making it the first intersection in the country to have two streets named after two civil rights leaders who worked side by side.
Hopefully, when people see that and they'll say, well, who was that Dolores Huerta? Then maybe somebody will say, well, maybe she was an organizer. She helped people come together to fight for their rights. And she worked for farm workers and poor people.
While the recognition is humbling, Dolores says it's the farm workers who were killed on picket lines that should be remembered.
And when you think, well, I have something named after me, you know, they gave up their lives.
At almost 90 years old, the activist says it's the New Mexico philosophy that keeps her going.
To learn what it is more about human kindness. And I think that's the lesson that we have in New Mexico, where everybody cares about everybody else.
Just as her story lives on, Dolores hopes New Mexico's does too.
I hope that New Mexico really hangs on to its traditions and to its culture because the New Mexico influence needs to be felt all over the world. Si se puede.
Reporting in California, Marissa Armas, KOAT Action 7 News.
And tomorrow